Dvar Malchut. We're talking about I got the right one yet. Yes, we're talking about the 3 weeks and how the 3 weeks, these 3 weeks, really contain in themselves something very, very good. Excuse me. And we said that what's really good are the 3, number 3 corresponds also to the 3 aspects of intellect, awareness, consciousness of God. Then also the 3 additional lands that God will give to the Jewish people through Moshiach. God promised Abraham 10 nations, and we only got 7. And God's going to conquer the 3 that's on the other side of the Jordan. We're going to get those also, not necessarily by war. The nations will gladly give to us. Something like what happened in the days of King Solomon, but even more. Everyone just wanted King Solomon's wisdom. And wisdom is such a very valuable thing that a person that has everything, but he doesn't have wisdom, so it's like a pocket with a hole in it. You can put $20 billion into your pocket, but it's got a hole in it, you lose the whole thing. A person that doesn't have any wisdom, so he's making the wrong choices. And he can use everything for exactly destruction, destroy himself. So that's Chachma Bina V'das. That's what we're going to get. We're going to get wisdom, understanding, and connection, reality. That's going to transform the 3 weeks of retribution that we're in right now. They're going to be transformed to these 3 extra nations we're going to receive, and also the 3 aspects of the soul corresponding Chachma Bina V'dat that we're going to get. Last week we talked about, if you remember, the number 3, Chazak, there's a Chazak. Okay. We can also say that this will be revealed. This is really the inner meaning of these 3 weeks of retribution. What am I doing here? Oh, I did it. Okay. This is what I want here. Go pointer. Forgot. That's the Kafishem, like these 3 weeks correspond to the 3 aspects of intellect. How? Shebizmanagalot, in the time of exile, then these 3 aspects of intellect, Chachma Bina V'das. And just to refresh our memory, Chachma means you have the proper concept of what God is. God creates everything from nothing. God is giving us the Torah all the time. The Torah is the wisdom and the will of God. These are just concepts, ideas. That's Chachma. The world belongs to God. It doesn't belong to us. Chachma. It's an idea. Bina is to understand this. What does it mean God creates everything all the time? What does that mean? What does it mean that the world belongs to God? What does that mean? What are the implications? What does that mean? How is that supposed to change me? That's Bina. And Das means that, okay, I have the proper concept of what God is. I have the proper understanding of God is, so I can explain it to everybody else. But taking it to heart, that it's really an idea that has to change me and I have to work, that's called dot. Dot means to kick. Now we don't have that. Totally. We're not really aware of what God is. These 3 aspects of intellect, now in the time of exile, they're concealed. They will be revealed in the Gula Mitit V'Shlema. But one of the things that Mashiach is to educate us, to open up our own awareness of who we are, of who's creating us, how important we are in God's eyes. And that's what it means. The Mashiach will, so to speak, conquer us, conquer the whole world. What do you mean conquer? That we won't be under any strange foreign influences. That the 10 nations, Nosaf Lesheva Artzos, in addition to these 7 nations, that's referring to refining the 7 emotions. Agim Artzos, also the 3 lands of the Kini and the Kinesi Kadmodi. This corresponds to the 3 intellect, even more. Since that the revelation of this is because it comes after the concealment, This is even more powerful. Like the advantage of light over darkness. Huh? A doctor that's really devoted to, let's say, healing people. His father was a doctor. His grandfather was a doctor. You're a doctor. You're an honorable person. People give you respect. They call you doctor. You're a special person. But let's say this doctor never saw anybody got healed from, it was on the verge of death and he got healed. He heard about it. He read about it, but he never really saw it, or it was never anybody that he knew. And suddenly one day comes in, someone was in a car accident. The guy is, a steamroller rolled over him. It's just, how is he breathing? And nobody knows. Looks and say, "Oi, this is my friend. Alas, poor Yorick. I love this guy. He's so wonderful. No, I'll have to save him." And he saves him. He brings him out. He puts up a pump there, and he pumps him up so he's not squashed like a pancake anymore. And he starts to give him vitamins and minerals and whatever it is. And suddenly, everything works. Makes a couple operations with this. So he sees now, wow, this is really meaningful. That's what it means. There's a better type of light that comes after darkness. And when he was a doctor, so he was a good doctor, right? But if he's a doctor that he really feels what healing a person means, what life is, what health really is, when you really appreciate it, only if you see or experience, God forbid, the opposite. So we say God forbid because we don't want any trouble to happen to anybody in the world. But the fact of the matter is that there's a tremendous benefit from this darkness. That's what it says. From the exile, we can take it to heart what God is, what life really is, what meaning is. We can also connect this with the three Torah portions, which are usually in these 3 weeks. Pinchas, that was 2 weeks ago. Matot Masa, that was last week. And Dvorim, which is going to be this week. Atzad Shabbat, what is similar to all these three, Sheba'em Medubar, this is talking about the dividing of the land of Israel. In Parshas Pinchas, it talks about how to divide the land of Israel with lots. In Matot Masa, it's talking about Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven. They said, we're going to go and fight, but we want to take a portion in the outside of Israel, on the other side of Jordan, one of the lands that Moshiach is going to conquer. They settled on the other side of the Jordan. And Parshas, that's Matot, and Maseh, this is the land which will come to Banachala. It explains exactly where the boundaries of the land of Israel are. And Devorim, which that's what this week's Torah portion, in the beginning, it talks about Moses relating to the Jewish people how God told him to go to the land of Israel, the land of Canaan. And interestingly, it's still called the land of Canaan, even after it's called the land of Israel. That God showed Moses the whole entire land of Israel. He said, you're not going to go there, but I'm going to show the whole thing to you. So these 3 weeks, what we read in the Torah portion, in the Torah, is talking about dividing the land of Israel. But Pratiyat Yoter in even more detail, the Gimel Parshos and these 3 Torah portions, the Pinchas and Matot Masa and Dvorim, Medubar, it's talking about the dividing of the whole entire land of Israel. It's not just the part that we have now. Lo rak be'evar Yarden me'arava. It's not talking about just the 3 lands which are on the other side of the Jordan. Elagam be'evar Yarden mizracha. Not just the part of Israel where we live now, which is the Jews went over the Jordan River to take over. But these 3 portions talk about also dividing the Jews, the part which is before the Jordan River, before they went over the land of Israel, before they went into the land of Israel. That's Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven. This is the beginning of the dividing of the 3 nations, Kini, Kinini, and Kazmozi, Edom, Moab, and Ammon. that is going to be what the Jewish people are going to get through Mashiach. But Yeshlom, we can say, that in this, it's hinted at also in the three mochin, Chachma, Bin, and Dat, Sheboim, that come together with, that they'll all come together with the 7 emotions. Right, nowadays, we love God and we fear God and we do what God says because we believe the Lubavitcher Rebbe is true and it's been passed down to us from generation to generation, and we get a little feeling ourselves, I mean, after all, we are Jews, and but we don't really feel God in everything we do. It could be we don't feel God in anything we do, but we do it. The emotions, we are emotional, we love God because God does all these things for us. But in the future, these 7 emotions of our fearing God and love, they're going to be connected to true awareness of God. Nowadays, we only have the 7 lands, but in the future, we're going to have the additional 3, and that can only come from difficulties. That's these 3 weeks. In the 3 weeks, when we read these 3 Torah portions in the week, right? These 3 Torah portions, we talked about dividing the land of Israel up, dividing all 10 tribes, all of the land of Israel. That from this we can come to Shevan and Nechamta. That's going to be after Tish Above. And Tish Above is the 7 weeks of comfort. Uba'avodat Adam, in the service of man, this hints at serving what we say, Asekan Eretz Yisrael. We talked about this yesterday, remember? That everywhere you are, you have to make it into the land of Israel. Kibush v'chalukot, namely the conquering and dividing up your place in the world. Vasiyota Eretz Yisrael, and wherever you are in the world, right? You live in California, you live in Florida, you live in Peru, you live in Moscow, it doesn't make any difference where you are. If you're a Jew, you have to make that place where you are holy. You have to do holy things, you have to say holy things, you have to think holy things. You have to do the commandments. That makes your place a holy place, not just a Jewish place. Dear Allah, you're making a dwelling for the Creator in His creation. The Tachlit Hashlemos, and the ultimate completion by machshav and thought, speech and action. And this is a preparation for the land of Israel is going to spread, it says, through the whole world, like we said before. So again, we're not talking about politically. We're not talking about sociologically. Right? All of a sudden, everyone's going to start eating falafel in the world or something. That they're going to, no one's going to dance to anything except for Hava Nagila or something like that. We're not talking about that at all, right? The Russians will remain the Russians, and the Peruvians will remain Peruvians, and the Puerto Ricans will still have salsa, and everything will be like it was. People will be with their own customs and their own things and their own nature, and exactly the opposite. That's beauty. When there's all these, that's harmony. That's what makes beauty. What does it mean then that the land of Israel is going to spread out over the whole world? Everyone will realize that the reason that they're different is because God is making them different. And that God is supporting everyone, and that God is the creator, and He is helping and protecting and providing for and enlivening everyone. And that will encourage people not to worry so much. A little bit, you want to worry a little bit because you like to worry. But there's nothing really to worry about. You have to plan for the future. You have to prepare. Maybe things won't turn out good. Maybe they won't. Maybe do positive things, take measures, right? But meaningless worry or fear or addictions or aggression or depression, the world can get along really well without any of those things. And that's what it means that the land of Israel will spread out to the whole world, that people will realize that there's a creator, and the creator is not creating them by accident. And true, I came by means of my mother and father, but my mother and father are not creating me right now. Right? And who's creating my mother and father? So the whole world will realize this. It won't be just a matter of, that's the Jewish faith, you can believe, and I believe, you believe what you want, I'll believe what I want. Everyone will believe what God wants. They'll believe the truth. Al Pia Kalal, Yesh Lomar, we can say, She'inyan, this whole idea of revealing the Mashiach on Tish Above, and the Mincha, it says in the Mincha prayer of Tish Above, Ukafi, like it was Kashur Avoda, like at the service of in air, the land of Israel. This is especially stressed in the prayer of Mincha of Shabbat Tish B'Av. When the Rebbe, when he was speaking, we talked about this yesterday. This speech was given, 32 years ago, 1991. And that year it came out, the Tish B'Av fell on Shabbat. So a lot of what the Rebbe is saying is that connection, right? When they come together, Shabbat, and okay, that's not happening this year, like we said. That's not happening this year. This we start the fast on Wednesday night. On Wednesday night, and it goes through Thursday until Thursday night. Thursday night you can eat. Hopefully we won't have any fast at all. I mean, Mashiach will come, there won't be any fast. It'll just be happy and rejoicing.
Amen.
And it says Mashiach is going to come, people will have to believe in the exile. They have to believe in the exile, right? Children will talk, they'll say, my daddy told me that there was a time when there was exile, where there was Jews that didn't do Torah and they didn't do commandments, and that the Jews, they wanted to give the land of Israel back to and they didn't keep Shabbos. Did you? Your father told you that? That can't be. There's no such thing. Couldn't possibly be a Jew that didn't do Torah and mitzvahs. No way. Didn't learn Torah. Let's go and ask. Father says, yes, it's true, my son. You have to believe there was such a thing as the exile. There was such a thing. We have to watch out. We don't do it again. How could he possibly do that? Believe, have faith. Have faith that there was such a thing as exile. There were Jews that thought there was no God. Couldn't be. That's what it happens on Mincha of Shabbos of Tish Above, Parshas Et Hanan. What is Parshas? Oh, so that's what I'm saying. If Tish Above falls on Shabbat, and it can be such a thing, this hints at that Tish Above can be transformed totally. Here we have Tish Above. When it falls on Shabbat, you eat and you drink and you're happy. And that's especially in the Mincha, it says that's when Mashiach is revealed. Al Piana, Kalal, like we said before, that the Torah is eternal. And the word Torah means teaching. Kol and Yanim, everything that's in the Torah are eternal, forever and forever, relevant to every place, every time, every person. When Atinat Koach and the note name, and they give teachings which are eternal to the Jewish people, all time, all place. If so, this arouses a big question. Now, let's make this clear. The Torah was given to the Jews. The Torah was given only to the Jews. Magi Dvar Yaakov, Chukot Mishpatam Yisrael. He took the Jews out of Egypt only in order to give them the Torah. There was no other nation that was in Egypt, and there was no other nation that received the Torah. And all the other religions are man-made, and they're little pieces of little sort of sparks of truth keep them going. But the Torah was given to the Jews, but it was given for the world. And in the Torah is also the 7 Noahide commandments, which shows how to make an orderly, peaceful, blessed world. But the Torah is given to the Jews. Okay, so it says, the Torah, though, is the language of teaching, and it's a teaching, an eternal teaching for every Jew in every time and every place, every Jew. So now we have a question. Right? Assuming that the Torah has a message for us here, and in fact there is. What do you mean assuming? That's the truth. The Torah has a message, and it's an important message, and it's the eternal message. What is the message? Just one second. Maya Hora, what is the teaching, the eternal teaching from in this week's Shabbat? We're going to learn the Mincha of Shabbat. The Rebbe is talking about Mincha of Shabbat. This case, it happened to be that Mincha of the Shabbat was Tish Above. Tish Above fell on Shabbat. Mincha Tish Above is when Mashiach is supposed to be revealed. What do we read in Mincha this coming Shabbat? What do we read? Next week's Torah portion, just the beginning of next week's Torah portion. Ve'et Hanan says that Moses prayed to God. Ve'et Hanan, I beseeched God. And it says if you count up the numbers, Ve'et Hanan, it comes out to 515. It says that God that Moses prayed 515 prayers to God, each one a little bit different, to let him come into the land of Israel. God, after Moses struck the rock, God said, that's it, you're not going to the land of Israel. And Moses said, come on, God, please. God said, nah. I request. Nah. I'm begging. Nah. 515. Finally, God said, that's enough. Right? He said, stop. God told Moses to stop. Tefillat Moshe, God prayed. God said, Moses prayed to God 515 prayers. The Knesset Israel to come to the land of Israel. Tefillah ubakasha lo nitkayam. Moses' prayers did not get answered. Ubamelan, so if so, this is begetter of my dahave. What was. What type of a positive? The Torah is a positive message. It's a positive message for everybody, for all times. What possible positive message could it have that Moses, who was the highest of the highs, he went into the Holy of Holies, who went into talk to God on Mount Sinai, nobody could do a thing like that. And all Moses asked for, he saved the Jewish people time and time again. And Moses said, okay, God, listen, I got a really simple thing for you. Let me in. Let me in the land of Israel. Come on, What do you say, God? Let me in, and I'll leave the side door open. I'll come in, God said no. 515 different prayers Moses prayed to God for such a simple thing. I mean, he took all the Jews out of Egypt. The Jews were close to idolaters when they were in Egypt. It says they all were idolaters. And they had all sorts of doubts and trouble, and they made Moses trouble and everything. And God took them out. And Moses, because of one little mistake, he wouldn't listen to 515 prayers. What possible message is there? Except one message we can learn from her: let's forget it. Let's forget the whole thing. God has his logic, and they did it with Moses. And let's just turn the page and let's go on to the next lesson. Right? He says, no, wrong. There must be some sort of a big positive message over here. Habir is, that's what it means, my dahavi. What there was, okay. Here's, the Torah comes to teach us something. Every word of the Torah, here's an exception. Here's an exception, right? Wrong. Everything comes to, what's coming to teach us here? Habir, the explanation is like this. Moving, it's simple and obvious. The prayer of Moses, it remains powerful. And certainly it will be fulfilled. God will answer it. Much more so, the prayer of every tzaddik. Every tzaddik has that a tzaddik goes over Kodesh Baruch Hu Kayam. Moses already prayed. His 515 prayers are standing there waiting to help every single Jew that his prayer should also be answered. How much more so the prayer of Moses should certainly be answered. Even so, Moses' prayer also will be answered, especially that Moses prayed 515 prayers, the number of Et Hanan prayers. The Ilu Zachu, and if you would have had the merit, some people say Zachu means the luck. Hayata Tefillas Moshe would have been fulfilled immediately. The Hu Hayam Machtis, and Moses would have brought the Jews into the land of Israel. Ubona Beit HaMikdash, and he would build the holy temple. For Azaya Beit Nitzchi, and you wouldn't have to have the first and the second temple and the exiles and etc. It would be an eternal building forever, like it says in books. But for whatever reasons there were shown out all sorts of different weird reasons. Haritafilas Moshe Beshaita, Moses, when he prayed these 515 prayers, were not answered as Bapol, actually in this physical world. In other words, it will be answered in the physical world, but back then they were answered, but not in the physical world. Because of the Gezer, because God made a decree that he said that Moses would remain in his generation in the desert. We're going to see in another moment that when Moshiach comes, so all the Jews are going to come to the land of Israel, including all those Jews that died in the desert, and Moses stayed in the desert to be with them. Okay. But liotam tefillah shel Moshe, because it's a prayer of Moses, and Moses prayed. It was 515 prayers of Moses. He bavadai, certainly it will be fulfilled. Ella but shezeh yeh muchar yoter. It just won't be in the time when Moses wanted. When will it be? The geula mitit shlema, and the true, total redemption of all of the Jewish people by means of the Mashiach. Shagul Rishon, that the first redeemer, that was Moses. He brought this whole idea of redemption and taking a whole nation out of exile. Moshe, he's the first redeemer. He'll be the last one also. And it's true that says the future redeemer will come from the tribe of Judah, Yehuda, and there'll be a direct descendant from King David. And King David was from the tribe, and there was a descendant of David, right? And Moses was not from the tribe of Judah. He was from the tribe of Levi. And he was definitely not a descendant of King David because he lived way before King David, right? So how is it going to be that he's going to be the last redeemer? So it explains that a spark of Moses will be in the Mashiach, and he'll be a great teacher like Moses was. He'll bring all the Jews into the land of Israel, and the Gula Mitit and the future redemption. So those 515 prayers that Moses prayed back there to get into the land of Israel, first of all, they stand and give merit to everybody else's prayers now. But in addition, they will be fulfilled actually physically in this physical world when Moses will come into the land of Israel, and all of the people who passed away will all go into the land of Israel. And certainly all the living people, that's going to be in the future redemption, which is going to happen. And if you think that it can't happen, so all of Judaism is based on a miracle that God took us out of Egypt and he gave us the Torah. So there can be miracles like going out of Egypt. That's the first of the 10 commandments. But in fact, the future redemption is going to make the going out of Egypt look normal. The going out of Egypt and with the big miracles, that to us is a big miracle. Judaism is based on that amazing miracle from God. When Mashiach brings all the Jews back to Israel, we'll see that in fact that was part of nature. It was a very nice part of nature, very high part of nature, but it was nevertheless part of nature. And part of it, the future redemption is going to be because God will finally answer Moshe's 515 prayers. We'll stop here. Now we'll have a story. I have to go somewhere today, so I'm a little